Hi there. Don't forget to subscribe to MindZone channel. Please click the subscribe button to access all my videos on Bhagavad Gita narrated by Guru Prasad. Chapter 1 of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, or the Yoga of Arjuna's Dejection. Dhritarashtra, the father of Kaurava brothers, was blind from birth. It is he to whom the actions in the battlefield of Kurukshetra is narrated by his charioteer and confident minister Sanjaya, which also includes the Bhagavad Gita. Sanjaya, quite the opposite of Dhritarashtra, has been blessed with special powers of yoga vision by sage Vyasa. Therefore, although he is not present on the battlefield, he can see all that happens there. Prior to the beginning of the epic battle, Sanjaya describes the battlefield arrangements to Dhritarashtra. As the warriors on the two opposing sides stand facing each other from a distance, anticipating a signal for the battle to begin, Arjuna requests Krishna to bring his chariot between the two armies so that he may get a full picture of the Kauravas and their supporters, all desirous to fight. But then, when he sees his teachers and uncles with their sons and friends all standing on the threshold of death, Arjuna realizes that his enemies are his own relatives, beloved friends, and revered teachers. Arjuna, at this point in time, is filled with doubt, ambiguity on the battlefield, and refuses to fight. Arjuna withers in distressed confusion, his mind reeling at the terrible prospect of death and destruction facing him. In this state, Arjuna asks Krishna existential questions. What purpose is gained by winning the pleasures of a kingdom when all those with whom we would enjoy it will be killed? Even if they kill me, I have no desire to kill them. Arjuna goes on to present several reasons why he should not fight in the battle. These arguments mainly about the devastating social consequences of so many men being killed and leaving behind unprotected women. This leads to convince us that Arjuna is a thoughtful, socially conscious, and a noble person. Arjuna may be justified in withdrawing from the battlefield, but he is also deeply dejected. Unlike Duryodhana and his armies, who see only friends and enemies in relation to themselves, Arjuna suffers from having a broader vision. He sees everyone present on the battlefield as members of the same family, and this leads him to deep questioning. Arjuna now turns to his charioteer and friend Krishna for advice. Responding to Arjuna's confusion and moral dilemma, Krishna explains to Arjuna of his duties as a warrior and prince. Conclusion: when human beings contemplate and recognize within themselves the sense of existence or disturbance or confusion, we begin the initial step of the yoga practice, which is to put our own life in a similar situation to the predicament in which Arjuna finds himself. After having realized the urgent need for higher vision, we need to qualify ourselves to acquiring the education in yoga. Throughout the course of the Gita, Krishna imparts knowledge to Arjuna's wisdom, the path to devotion, and the doctrine of selfless actions, which Arjuna shall receive in the remaining 17 chapters. This can be imbibed in our own life to attain peace and tranquility. This completes chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, which has 42 verses. Chapter 2 of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Sankhya Yoga, or the Yoga of Analysis. Arjuna's distress drives him to request his dear friend Krishna to set aside the equality of status in their friendship and to assume the role of a teacher. Lord Krishna accepts this role and initially chides Arjuna for sounding very learned but being ignorant of higher truth. Krishna then proceeds to instruct Arjuna the basic principle of spiritual analysis. Krishna goes to advise and to distinguish between the temporal physical and mental body on one side and the atemporal non-physical and supermental self on the other side. To further clarify this, Krishna provides analogies from common experiences, such as we take off old and worn clothes and redress in our new clothes. Similarly, the atemporal self abandons the temporal body when it no longer functions, accepting a new temporal body, which is generally born into another family from that of the previous body. Based on this analogy, Krishna argues that Arjuna need not be anxious and in distress about the imminent death of the warriors he now faces. Krishna explains, even if the warriors are killed, the self or Atma in those warrior bodies will in fact not die, as the all living selves are indestructible. Krishna talks about a warrior in a righteous battle is awarded a place in heavenly realms if his body is killed, and therefore there is nothing for Arjuna to worry about. Krishna persuades Arjuna to fight in this battle out of concern for his own pride and reputation as a warrior. If Arjuna withdraws from the battlefield, he will be looked down by other warriors, and this would be a fate worse than death. Krishna does not press this point about Arjuna's reputation as a warrior any further in the Gita. Krishna rather provides a summary of yoga practice by which one may realize through experience the truth about self or Atma as distinct from the body. Krishna names this yoga practice as Buddhi Yoga or the Yoga of Discernment, a word that Krishna uses several times in this section, chapter 2 of the Gita. Buddhi suggests awakening and alertness. By developing alertness in distinguishing between what is temporary or one's own body and the activities of mind, and what is not temporary or the essential principle of life or Atma. This self-realization is the first important accomplishment of yoga practice, which is attained. This attainment is freedom from the command and demands of the mind by which one is constantly disturbed amidst the fluctuations of life, feelings of happiness and distress. With such freedom of mind comes freedom from the command of the senses. Krishna describes an example of an accomplished yogi who practices yoga as the one who is standing in wisdom or sthita prajna. Krishna provides a striking analogy to help understand the state of consciousness of such a person. Just as water constantly pours from rivers into the undisturbed ocean, similarly, all kinds of desires may enter a person who is adept in yoga. The yogi attains peace and does not pursue desires. In other words, the accomplished practitioner of yoga does not identify himself or herself with the constant stream of desires, knowing that desires are nothing but desires of the senses to enjoy temporary pleasures, or desires of the mind to enjoy temporary pleasures through thoughts pleasing to the mind. Conclusion. Chapter 2 sets forth the most essential principles in understanding of yoga, upon which it is based as a whole. The key principle of yoga in this chapter is analysis or sankhya, by which one learns to deeply question the received wisdom of the world. The received wisdom is what we as human beings must identify within our own physical body and mind to achieve a successful, happy life. Buddhi Yoga serves to encourage direct experience of the truth, to identify one's Atma by enabling ourselves to rise above the temporary life in this world. This completes Chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, Sankhya Yoga, which has 72 verses. Chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yoga, or the Yoga of Action. Krishna advises in Chapter 2 the yoga as self-control and being equipoised or balanced amidst all circumstances. Krishna's talk urges for Arjuna to go forth and fight in the ensuing battle, which leaves Arjuna confused. Arjuna feels he is not in a clear state of mind to go forth and fight. Arjuna asks why Krishna seems to advocate the path of knowledge and understanding while asking Arjuna to perform action. To further clarify, Krishna explains Karma Yoga, or the Yoga of Action. The first point to understand about action is that action is unavoidable. Nobody can remain inactive even for a moment. Everyone is forced to act by their modes of nature. Inaction is just another way of becoming implicated in self-centered behavior, resulting in continued bondage of the self. This is because what binds one to the law of karma is not actions, but the attachment to the fruits of those actions. Krishna says a karma yogi has no attachment to the fruits of action. Thus, all living beings are trapped in the bondage of their own actions. Any attempt to become free from this bondage by one's own endeavor will simply result in further and possibly tighter bondage. The solution Krishna offers is to practice Karma Yoga. And the first step in Karma Yoga is to engage one's body consisting of sense organs that facilitate action. For example, the legs, arms, and the power of speech. One should perform our prescribed Vedic duties, since action is superior to inaction. By ceasing activity, even our bodily maintenance will not be possible. The basic bodily activities like eating, bathing, and maintaining proper health requires work. These obligatory actions are called Nitya Karma. Work must be done as yajna or sacrifice to the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, Krishna advises Arjuna to perform the prescribed duties without being attached to the results. Work done for the enjoyment of one's senses and the gratification of one's pride is the cause of bondage in the material world, while work performed as yajna or sacrifice for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord liberates one from the bonds of Maya and attracts divine grace. Yajna is typically done in prescribed ritual forms that serve to affirm one's participation in humanity's essential cosmic function. Importantly, such acts must be performed without attachment for any results or benefits gained from them. Then only one can become free from the bondage of karma. In the concluding verses of this chapter, Arjuna asked Krishna, by what is a person impelled to act wrongly or improperly, or by force, or even without intending to do so? Krishna responds, the cause of such actions is desire or lust, kama, and anger, krodha, arising from the modality, guna, of passion. This condition is, in turn, caused by the covering of one's innate knowledge of the self's true, eternal nature. Krishna says that to lift this covering, one must act with careful discrimination or buddhi in order to conquer the enemy. Conclusion. Chapter 3 brings the sense of purification, neutralization, and transformation to the concept of yoga, whereas action or karma normally causes bondage for human beings. If we, as human beings, perform in the spirit of sacrifice or yajna, by which one connects oneself to the cosmic God, then actions become purified and neutralized of any reactions. Action becomes transformed into spirit, benefiting both the atemporal self and the entire world. This completes chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yoga, which has 43 verses. Chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, Gnana Yoga, or the Yoga of Knowledge. In this chapter, Krishna builds on the two principles introduced in the previous two chapters, detached action and sacrifice, by focusing on third principle, transcendent knowledge, gnana, or knowledge of spirit. Krishna emphasizes the power of transcendent knowledge, comparing it to fire, an essential component of ritual practice. Fire has the power to burn to ashes all the effects of actions performed with attachment due to ignorance. To engage one's powers of discernment to understand the difference between spirit and matter and to act accordingly is the yoga of knowledge. Krishna focuses explicitly on the yoga of knowledge in the later part of this chapter. First, Krishna speaks about yoga in general. Yoga, he says, is an extremely ancient teaching that he, Krishna, as the Supreme Lord, from time to time enters the world to renew. People tend to confuse and forget the teaching Krishna says, as a consequence, Dharma, the cosmic order sustained by humanity's proper practice of duties, becomes obscured and the whole world suffers. To restore cosmic order, the Supreme Lord repeats the ancient yoga teaching, while making it comprehensible for people living in later times. The essential principle of yoga, understood as connection, is that humans become connected or reconnected with Yogeshwara, the master of yoga, who is the Supreme Lord. Such connections enables divine reciprocation, the essential principle of bhakti or devotion. Krishna continues to say, both pious and impious ways of life find place in the providence of divine reciprocation, such that all persons receive their dues and everyone thus proceeds along Krishna's path. Amongst humans, however, the most progressive in spiritual knowledge are those who accept Krishna, the Supreme Lord's exceptional position as the unique one. All actions must be performed without the effect of fruits or results. To appreciate this feature of divinity is the foundation of liberating knowledge, Gnana. By this knowledge, one comes to comprehend the difference between binding action and liberating non-action. Krishna says, it is this kind of knowledge that burns away the binding effects of action, and the wise person who lives in such knowledge is truly learned or Pandita. Krishna clarifies, Panditas have true knowledge of reality in contrast to mere belief. Such persons remain active, but all their actions are in effect non-actions, because such actions are done with an attitude of sacrifice. Such sacrificial actions in yoga become actions of spirit or the supreme absolute reality. Krishna lists several traditional ways in which sacrifice or yajna is performed. All these types of yajna have in common the act of offering as oblation something one might be inclined to keep for oneself. Krishna clarifies, for example, some people give up various goods by performing ritual worship of various celestial beings, whereas others offer oblations into the fire. Even the yogic discipline of restraining one's mental functions becomes a sacrifice in which one offers one's sense activities as oblations into the fire-like controlled mind. Krishna advises one to take guidance about how to perform yajna from seers of truth or tattva darshina. One must be submissive and approach them in a humble spirit to inquire and render service. Krishna assures Arjuna that when one comprehends such knowledge of spirit, living in such knowledge, one is practicing Gnana Yoga, by which one will be ever free from confusion. Krishna goes to say, with this knowledge, one will see that the countless living beings are all within the higher self, within the Supreme Lord Krishna. Conclusion. As this chapter ends, Krishna provides two analogies for this special sort of knowledge. Knowledge is compared to a boat which one can cross beyond all suffering. Knowledge is compared to a weapon by which all doubts rooted in ignorance are to be slashed apart. Thus, Krishna suggests being engaged in Gnana Yoga is to be active in such a way that all tendencies to act in ignorance, resulting in bondage, are fully overcome, as one acts with true knowledge of spirit, of reality beyond temporal existence. This concludes Chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, Gnana Yoga, which has 42 verses.